Hello there, and I'm sorry that I can't be there in person at this most important event. Sad to say, today is the very day that the police funding settlement will be announced by the government, and we need to know how much Northumbria Police are likely to get. So we must be stuck with the nitty-gritty of finance, I'm afraid, all day. It would only be something as important as that which will stop me from coming to this most important event with you. Firstly, let me congratulate the team who've put together the package of training that you're going to be told about and hopefully pass on to all our young people after this event. It is an extremely well achieved package. I've had a chance to look through it, and I can't think that you could hit the spot better than you have done with this piece of work. And I really want to encourage every teacher here now, and your colleagues to be encouraged too, to take this on and work very hard with it. It is not the easiest of material to work with, and I'm extremely conscious of that. But with some will and some application, you can be doing no end of good to the next generation. Let me tell you what I mean. When I came to the Police and Crime Commissioner almost 3 years ago now, I have an obligation to consult the public on what they see as the priorities for the police and about law and order generally. Absolutely top of the public's perspective was domestic and sexual abuse. It is seen as a massive evil which seriously disrupts life, and that is an absolutely accurate perception. Let me tell you that in Northumbria Police alone, we receive almost 30,000 calls a year about domestic abuse. We receive many hundreds of calls in a year about rape. And if you think that we think about 1 in 5 people who are raped, and perhaps 1 in 4 people who suffer from domestic abuse ever complain about it, you can understand that even in our friendly, nice place to live, Northumbria, these two kinds of behaviour are absolutely rife. They are also extremely damaging forms of behaviour. They are very hard to make a complaint about because they're inherently embarrassing, and they are also the kind of abuse which imprisons the person who's the victim of it. So it's very hard to get away, to realise you're being abused, or to talk about it. And so it is deeply damaging behaviour. Now, we've got a regional violence against women and girls strategy because a large amount of this, the overwhelming majority of it, is done against women and girls. But I will not leave out at all boys, who are often victims of child sexual exploitation. But because there is a core of this kind of behaviour against women, which also includes things like forced marriage and female genital mutilation and other activities, we have a violence against women and girls strategy, and we have a regional one here. The 2 police and crime commissioners in Durham and in Cleveland join me in having that strategy. So we have new ways the police will work to try to head off perpetrators and stop it. We will find new ways of intervening with people who are not able to complain for themselves but somehow manage to tip the wink to someone else that they are suffering from this. We will get the police in there, or we will get voluntary and community sector experts from Women's Aid and so on in there to help them. We have a whole programme about training perpetrators to mend the way they behave. Of course, we arrest and we prosecute people who rape and who do serious domestic abuse. We have so many points in our violence against women and girls strategy that the best way I can suggest you see the extent of it is to read it. It has 20 commitments for us to take action. That is something which, even though we do it, is not going to be more than picking up the pieces, frankly, because that is, I fear, what goes on, and that is, I fear, how we can only tackle it. Unless, of course, we can stop the next generation from suffering the way this generation has by educating boys and girls to understand about healthy relationships, to understand about the nature of consent in sexual relationships, and to understand too, from a very strongly a victim's perspective, what it is like to be groomed. Clearly, if domestic abuse has this imprisoning effect that I've described, because it is very oppressive behaviour, and if child sexual exploitation depends, as I think the detectives to follow me will tell you it does, on young people being groomed into thinking they're in a very special relationship with their groomer, that the person is being driven beyond all reason with real affection for them, wants to be with them all the time, and gets them totally in their grip in that way. It seems logical, does it not, that since we're talking about domestic abuse as psychological coercive control and grooming as a sort of benevolent but truly coercive control, that the best thing to do is to armour the next generation against both of those. And because this is psychological pressure, it is eminently possible to do that if we can get children young enough, we can get their attention, and of course school is the ideal time to do this. We know a lot of things that play into how important this work you're doing is. For instance, we know that the average age on which a boy will look at pornography on the internet is now 10 years old. If that boy is not getting some information from a sensible, respectable, educative resource, they are going to grow up thinking that that kind of porn is actually what relationships are like, and that will have a bad effect on them and a bad effect on the people they have relationships with. Clearly, school is a very good place to be able to correct those imbalances. A very interesting thing too that we discovered really here is that we know the law about rape is that if a victim of rape is so drunk that they're incapable of deciding whether they want to have sex or they don't, then anyone who has sex with them in that drunken state is guilty of rape. That is to say, putting it in the vernacular, that young men who go out at night and are involved with a young girl who is extremely drunk, if they think that having sex with her actually is a lovely opportunity and it's Christmas, they are quite wrong. It is rape and it is likely to end them up in custody. The interesting thing we found out was that very, very few young men or young women know that consent is completely undermined, however willing she may be, if she's extremely drunk. So just two small examples of how information can redress things that young people can get wrong, that some of our young people have got wrong, to lead to the bad relationships which have produced the kind of abuse that I've talked about. Child sexual exploitation has been around for a very long time, but we've only become aware of it, as you all are extremely well know, and the extent of it in the last few years. And now it's started to come out, and people have, thank goodness, started to feel that they can tell people about it. It has aided beyond measure the ability to understand how sexual exploitation has been imposed on people and has had such an impact on them that they felt they could tell absolutely nobody at all, sometimes for the entirety of their lives, or sometimes for a whole generation, until perhaps they have children themselves, and then they appreciate the risk that child is in, and so they then become able to talk about it. It is good that people are now able to talk about that kind of exploitation, and so we have learned how that exploitation is carried out, and that again helps to just negate it. If you can armour plate a young person so that when a would-be groomer comes to them and starts to use nice language and to buy them presents and to take them out, or however it is done in the particular case, if you can get that child to understand what's happening, so a bell rings in their head, as it were, and they seek some help or push the person away or whatever's needed, imagine therefore what danger, what risk, what damage we're saving by doing it. So you'll have one day here, and then you will go on and take this forward. This one day is going to be so important. I do feel that this is a hugely important mission, if you don't mind me using that term, that we are on. I do not want the next generation of police and crime commissioners in 30 years' time to have strategies to tackle this kind of offending. I want us to have worked together to reduce it and reduce it and reduce it until it stops. And we can do that by telling children all about it. Very good luck for the day, and I hope the conference goes well.